Hi, class. Yeah, that lecture was kind of long, wasn't it? And they said you have to keep these between 5 to 7 minutes. The thing is, I get on a roll, and plus, I just love some of these topics. I just keep gabbing. But anyway, this is one of my favorite lectures. There are some lectures that are like near and dear to your hearts. And this one is about how do customers think? And the concept of this is that, yes, we are all random. We are all individuals. However, people tend to be systematic. We're inconsistent, but we're systematic, and that's that when you go making decisions, there's certain processes that you go through. And so by understanding that, we can make predictions on what people will do. And so today we're going to talk about how customers value things and essentially how they behave. What it all comes down to is a gentleman named Maslow figured out what our customer needs were. For you psych majors, this is, you already know this. But at the very bottom, our base needs are, food and water. Then our next need is for safety, whether it's, ADT for your house or malware bites, love and belonging, part of the reason why people go to church or use eHarmony. Self-esteem, you feel good when you're rolling around in your Beamer. Or you go on Facebook. And self-actualization is the highest level, and that's where you live to your highest potential. And that's what this class is about. And of course, if you can't take it physically, you take it online. And so the thing is, when you look at a product and you look at how it's valued, a good product, you can reconnect it through Maslow to one of these levels. The thing about values, it also could be societal. Like, for example, physiological needs aren't that big a deal in this country. But if you're like in Bangladesh, where you have a whole bunch of people starving and all of a sudden now the pyramid kind of changes shape because physiological needs become much bigger. And some people have joked at the bottom of the pyramid should be internet. We know about the three values that drive customer value. So we're going to today talk about psychological and economic. So the thing about functional, it's about utility, and psychological, what that covers though is also motivation. It's essentially starts to delve into personality, learning ability, and this shapes a marketing plan. Richard Thaler is actually one of the great game theory economists, and essentially he found certain trends among people, that people will behave in a certain way, and it's more or less become a rule of how you deal with people. And the thing is, we all have biases. I don't care who you are. You have a bias somewhere. The big thing is to recognize that you do have a bias, because that's a weakness. And two of the most common biases people make, especially when it comes to marketing, is people assume they are like us. Well, I love this product. Everybody else should too. No. And that's a motivational bias. Another is you assume that your view of the world is superior. They don't get it. Well, they're just a bunch of idiots. Yeah, but you're counting on those bunch of idiots to buy your product. And those are two of the most common. The thing is, when people make decisions, there's a spectrum of how people think. Some people are more rational. And what rational means is you're going to follow economic theory. You're going to do the thing that maximizes your return. One thing I've said about people is the only thing you can count on people to do is what's in their best interest. And that's rational theory. Yes, people call me cold-hearted, but I'm just being rational. The total other end of the spectrum is motivational, and that's when people think more emotionally, and so now you're talking about psychological theory. And in the middle is bounded rationality, and that's that they're going to follow certain game theory in economics. They're going to follow certain patterns. And so the key is, do you recognize that pattern? The thing about economic theory is essentially there's a reference to it, though. Like, for example, if I'm a billionaire, do I really care if I lose $10 or if I lose $100? As a student, though, when you're dirt poor, yes, you always care about those things. So economic theory says we're going to do what's in our best interest, but are we always rational? No, we're not. And Alan Greenspan was absolutely shocked when in 2008 the market crashed and that people would do all these things because it was self-destructive. However, Alan Greenspan fell up a turnip truck. Guess what, Alan? It's called greed. And he did not recognize that about the nature of people. People can be irrational. And an example for it is they took a poll of Stanford students and asked them to estimate how people die. And the thing is that they estimated that 53% of deaths come from unnatural causes, like you get murdered or an accident or something like that. In the reality, it's only 8% of all deaths. But the thing is, we have so many fears, it makes us irrational. And when you have fear, a problem all of a sudden becomes much bigger than what it actually is. An example of that is going to war in Iraq. Because of 9/11, people are so fearful, they didn't think rationally. This is the game of ultimatum. And this is an example of irrationality. And the way a game of ultimatum is played is you're offered a certain amount of money. Now, say it's $10,000. I have to offer you a certain amount of that $10,000. You know it's $10,000. And if I offer you a certain amount, if you accept it, then we both get to keep our money. If you say no, then we're both out. Now, if I got offered $100,000 and offered you $1, would you take it? Well, some of you would, but most people don't. For the simple reason is there's a perception, wait a minute, if we're going to get all this money and you're only giving me $1, that's not fair. And so this is the nature, and this is the nature of rules that aren't written. But part of the reason why we don't act rationally is there's a doctrine of fairness. We do not take a deal if we do not think it's fair. And this is what the game of ultimatum illustrates. The thing is, economic theory says that if I offered you 1 penny, you should take it. Why? Because you went from 0 to 1 penny. And that's the domain of behavioral rationality. And so, in terms of this bounded rationality, I said behavior, I meant to say bounded. We make optimal decisions based on our cognitive capacity, how much information we could take, what information I have available, and how much time do I have. And the thing about bounded rationality is what we do is instead of going for the maximum return, we just go for the one that's satisfactory. And the thing is, you start to see consistent and systematic behaviors. And we'll wrap that up in the next lecture.